All right, well, we just spent 8 hours wasting our time with the Acolyte, and you know what's not a waste of time? 30 hours with Jedi Survivor. People think sequels to story-based games are safe. They're not. They're actually pretty hard to do well, even if you pull off a game that's objectively better in every way, like Tears of the Kingdom in comparison with Breath of the Wild. You have to overcome familiarity, you have to keep it fresh, and you have to give the player an emotional experience with the expectations already set high from the previous game. So does Jedi Survivor pull that off? Well, I mean, yeah, you've seen the reviews for it, and it's highly rated. It might be a little buggy, but there was a patch that released several months later that fixed a lot of things about it. Maybe not everything, but it fixed a lot. So does this game reward patient gamers? Let's find out. After 30 hours, I can tell you 5 ways that Jedi Survivor doesn't waste your time. One of my pet peeves in video games is the fact that you can customize your character, but the drawback is that it's first person. So what's the point? Also, there's a lot of games where you can mod your character, but the cutscenes will default to the original build that they had, and it will go back during gameplay. If you remember in Jedi Fallen Order, you got to customize a lot about your character. I mean, you got to customize your lightsaber blade, you got to customize your hilt. You never really saw it all too much outside of the workbenches. I mean, yeah, it showed up in cutscenes and stuff a little bit, but yeah, it was kind of like, this is cool, but you know, what's the whole point of customizing your lightsaber hilt? In Jedi Survivor, character mods and lightsaber mods, just all the customization options all show up in cutscenes, which actually leads you to care more about customization and actually spend more time doing so. Even if it makes you look like a total creep or Rambo or you just joined the army, they're all actually worth your time doing stuff because they actually have relevance in things other than just the gameplay itself. Another way Jedi Survivor doesn't waste your time is that there are more fighting styles in this game and more gameplay customization options than the first one, but it's also not overwhelming. If you've played Horizon Forbidden West, you will go from the first game to that game with an overwhelming amount of gameplay styles and customization stuff that you're just kind of like, oh man, there's just so much options. I don't know if I need all these options. Jedi Survivor gives you those customization options and more of them than the first game, but it also doesn't overwhelm you. With all those new fighting styles in different games like Horizon Forbidden West, you have to spend a considerable amount of time learning how to adapt and learning how to play those play styles. Jedi Survivor gives you a few extra. From the first game, you have your single-bladed lightsaber and your double-bladed lightsaber. Then the new additions are your dual-wield, like Ahsoka Tano. Then you have your Kylo Ren-inspired heavy lightsaber with the crossguard. And then you have your blaster and single-bladed lightsaber. Each of these new playstyles definitely take a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, you'll find the one that really suits your playstyle best. If you're using the Kylo Ren-inspired crossguard, then you'll definitely hit enemies a lot harder, but it takes a minute to actually swing your blades. Then you have your dual-wielding, which is kind of a mix of more of defense, and if you have a lot of lasers being blasted at you, it's good for defense and swinging at those guys. Then you have your blaster and single blade combo. This is more of a deceive your enemy with a shot and go in for the kill. These fighting styles were really welcome, and they were definitely a blast to play with. I personally chose the blaster single-bladed lightsaber and the dual wield. Another way Jedi Survivor doesn't waste your time is that you don't have to rediscover your abilities. A lot of sequels start off by you forgetting your previous powers, and in this one, you actually keep them from the last, which is a bit of a different thing. The enemy styles are definitely different and varied, and they definitely pose a challenge to you. It's nice when you don't have to gain all the same abilities as you did in the last one, and you actually more gain new abilities and stuff, which actually keeps the game really fresh. Another way Jedi Survivor doesn't waste your time is it tells a really gripping story. One of my pet peeves with stories these days is women are made out to be overpowered without really working for it too much. I'm looking at Rey, I'm looking at anyone who really has a lot of strength but just doesn't need to work for it. And then they also make guys out to be like just idiots half the time, and it's really not fun to tell a story that way. It's actually more fun to do character progression well, which this game does very well. You have Cal, who's super likable. He goes from needing his hand held to being super capable. You have Marin, who's super strong, and she is very fun to fight enemies with. You have your friend Bode along for the trip, and the brotherhood between those guys is super fun. And without spoiling anything, I can just generally say that the plot really gets you involved. It's told a bit differently than other stories are. Even, I mean, I'm not just talking about Star Wars, but just stories in general. Star Wars lately has been focusing on the era of the High Republic. It's really funny because both the Acolyte and Jedi Survivor both feature Jedi that were of that time period. I mean, one was set in that period, one set between 3 and 4, and both these Jedis are kind of morally compromised. I mean, they both go to the dark side. I mean, it's not a huge spoiler for me to say that, but it's kind of funny. I mean, the Acolyte sets you up to hate the Jedi versus Jedi Survivor is more of a plot device than anything. And finally, this game rewards go-getters. A lot of times you'll go off the beaten path and go get collectibles for a better weapon, for some gear modifications, for some cosmetic upgrades and stuff. But here in this game, what I can tell you is go do some bounties for a bounty hunter, and you will definitely get a nice treat out of it. It's very exciting, so that's about all I'll say on that matter. Some bonus stuff that also contributes to the game and not wasting your time is they actually listen to fans' feedback on difficulty. In Fallen Order, I definitely think there was a mode that they could have done in between story and normal. A lot of times I played on normal and I went down to story for the bosses, and in this game I did that far less. I did most of the game I played throughout the normal mode, and then there was just some areas where I did story mode. Yeah, I suck at video games sometimes, but what are you gonna do? I mean, time is short. Also with this game, you don't have to grip the ledge with R2 or the right trigger. It's auto grab here. You do have to press X or A to get on the ledge, but I mean, that's just more nitpicky stuff. They definitely listened to the fans and brought back the tight space squeeze, but that's not a disguise for loading screens anymore. It's more of just a callback to the previous one. And this game actually blends the prequel and OG eras really nicely. You'll find stormtroopers, you'll find the droids that say Roger Roger. Now, that's not to say Jedi Survivor does not waste your time in any way whatsoever. I mean, yeah, we had that patch that went out in September, and it's not quite a Bethesda level of egregious, but some of the bugs do take you out of the game experience, maybe a little bit extra, you know. There's some camera rotation that on the sides of the bar of the screen, it's kind of just white glitches or something, just kind of like it hasn't loaded. BD1's head is not always there, and sometimes he does not always signal to action, which causes you to have to restart the game and load the last checkpoint, which is especially frustrating if you've just wiped out a horde of enemies and you have to start back over again. But does Jedi Survivor reward patient gamers? Yeah, you bet. I mean, these bugs are, you know, they're there, they're noticeable, but don't let them take away from your overall enjoyment of Jedi Survivor. I really would say it's a worthy sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. It's fresh, it maybe a little bit more time in the oven could have been a little bit better, but it is a very solid game, and I would go so far as to say better than the first. When you look at games like Tears of the Kingdom and Spider-Man 2, Tears of the Kingdom is an objectively better game than Breath of the Wild was. I think the newness of Breath of the Wild made it stick out in my memory a little bit more, because that was the first time we'd seen that graphical style and stuff. You have stuff like the pits of Hyrule, and that's new, and the sky is new, and the traversal is new. I mean, there's a lot of great options in Tears of the Kingdom, so it kind of felt more of like a perfection of what Breath of the Wild was, really. But I honestly think Breath of the Wild is going to stick out a little bit more in my memory, more so because of the freshness. And this as well as something like Spider-Man 2. The first game was great, and the second game was kind of a perfection of the gameplay, at least. I mean, maybe not the story so much, but definitely the gameplay, and it was still a very fun game. It wasn't quite as memorable as the first one, again, because of the freshness. Jedi Survivor feels truly fresh in that it feels new. like they're not trying to go back to what they did in Jedi Fallen Order. So what did you think of Jedi Survivor? Was it worth your time? Did it waste more time? Did it not waste any time? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget, games for busy people.
They want me. They've got me.